In this video, I will show you how to sum the last 10 columns in Excel like this. So let's get started. Here in this Excel sheet, I have years and respective investment amounts in these columns. Now I want to calculate the sum of the amounts for the last 3 years, that is years 2022 to 2024. To do that, we first need to get the cells containing data for the last 3 years. I will use the Excel offset function to do that. The offset function returns a reference to a range, that is the number of rows or columns from the specified starting cell. This function accepts 5 arguments: a reference of the starting point, the number of rows to offset, the number of columns to offset, optional height in rows, and optional width in columns. For example, let's get the last 3 amounts from the third row using the offset function. To do that, I will select cell A3 as the starting point. We want the data from the same row, so the row offset argument will be 0. Since we want the data starting from the 5th column, that is 4 columns after the starting point A3, I will specify 4 is the column offset argument. The height refers to how many rows we want from the data, so that will be only 1 row. I will mention 3 as the column width argument because we want data from 3 columns. As you can see, the offset function returned the last 3 amount cells as an array. We can also get the same 3 amount cells by specifying the starting point as G3 instead of A3 and then specifying -2 as the column offset instead of 4 like this. To get all the data cells from these 2 columns, that is cells C2 to G3, I will specify cell C2 as the starting point. Since we want to start from the same cell without any offset, I will specify 0 as the row and column offset arguments. Since we want 2 rows starting from cell C2, I will specify the row height as 2. Finally, since we want the data from 5 columns starting from cell C2, I will specify 5 as the width in columns. As you can see, we now have all the data from year and amount columns, 2 rows in height and 5 columns in width as an array. Since we now know how to get the last 10 columns from the data, summing them up is very easy. Let's type an equal sign in the target cell to start the formula. Let's first get the last 3 amount cells using the offset function. This time I will specify E3 as the first starting point argument, 0 as the row and column offsets, 1 as the row height, and then specify 3 as the column width argument. As you can see, this offset function will return the last 3 amount cells. Since we want to sum these array elements, I will simply pass this offset function as an argument of the sum function like this. Hit the enter key to complete the formula. As you can see, we now have the sum of the last 3 columns. Instead of hard coding the n value, we can also refer to a cell containing the n value. For example, in this Excel sheet, I have the n value defined in cell C6. I am going to specify the cell C3 as the starting point and 0 as the row offset argument. To calculate the column offset dynamically, I will first get the total number of columns containing amounts in third row using the count function and then subtract the number of last columns we want from the data like this. Here, the count of amount values will be 5, and when we subtract the number of columns, that is 3, from 5, we will get 2 as the column offset from the starting point C3. Hit the enter key to complete the formula. As you can see, we now have the sum of the last 10 columns dynamically calculated based on the cell value. In this way, we can change the number of columns without changing the formula to get the updated sum dynamically. For example, changing the number of columns from 3 to 4 will give us the sum of the last 4 columns automatically. Watch these videos for more Excel tips, tricks, and how-to tutorials. If you found this video helpful, please like the video and subscribe to our channel.